evening and welcome to the FE Bar. We've had a further 6 hours of running at Madrid and we have plenty to talk about tonight. Joining me tonight is the wonderful Jasmine Hughes and we have lots to talk about. A great day for Cairo Race as Dan Ticktum was in the top 3 for both sessions. Could this be a sign of things to come? We'll also talk about Mahindra as they look to make it their way forward, and you can hear from Eduardo Mortara tonight. But remember, we cannot do this show without you! !Discord. Join the Discord. Get yourself in the waiting room. It's the only place to be if you want to have your chance to have a chat on the action in Formula E. Jasmine! Your debut on the FE Bar. How are you? Officially your debut.
Very well, thank you. Yeah, I had my one little standing gig when Nick was unwell, but otherwise this is officially my first time. Very excited to be here, excited to be getting back into it. I've missed Formula E a lot, so thank you very much for having me. How are you doing, Jack?
I'm very good, very busy as always. The day just doesn't stop, especially doing these back to back. I've got my papers. I've got papers everywhere. I've got two notebooks opened up full wide.
Well, he takes his stuff seriously.
You have to, you know.
Come on.
So yeah, make sure !Discord for anyone who wants to get in. There is a lot to talk about today, and we're going to start with Kiro, as we correctly learnt the pronunciation. I don't know how the team are pronouncing it, but did you know, Jasmine, it is a Japanese word.
What does it mean?
I can't remember. Something to do with furniture. Oddly enough, yeah, it was something to do with furniture. Like it was like some sort of table or something.
I don't know. When I think speed, I think a table. Naturally. Yeah. The two dots just join.
You know when you just ask Google, right, or Alexa, what does this mean? And then it tells you, right? So basically, that's what me and Jack Smith did for Motorsport Week when we won the show a couple of weeks ago. But instead we asked Google, and Google told us it was.
What does this mean?
What does how do you? Because we were wondering how to pronounce it, because obviously they were like Cairo. Well, I was Cairo at the beginning.
Cairo.
Because
they're American, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're an American.
Team. So
I'm imagining like Cairo, you know.
So yeah, there was a good debate about that. But then we found out it's a Japanese word, so we're like, has to be Kiro from now. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. If they want to pronounce it differently, then they're wrong. That's the best way to go about it. But what a day!
Maybe we should make a poll this year and just like keep a tally of all the different ways that people pronounce it, like every press conference, every broadcast, what all the different possible combinations,
and then see which one is most liked.
Yeah, pick a winner.
Pick a winner.
Pick our favorite. Everyone can comment their favorite Kiro pronunciation. Give us some good suggestions.
Yeah, definitely. But what a day, though, because yesterday we were talking about they were towards the back, right? And we're like, Pico suggested earlier that because they've got the old powertrain, that they might be quick at the start, but then fade away, right? As the software begins, and then that sounded quite reasonable to think about. Then yesterday we looked at them, and you're like, they're near down the bottom. You know, it is an ask, and we were talking to some Dan Ticktum fans yesterday, Helen. And you're like, is it just another year petering around the back of the grid for Dan just to keep himself in Formula E? You know, poor Dan's managed to put this whole thing together by asking the Forest Group to come in and take over. So just to keep him driving at the back. But P2 today, P3.
Yeah.
What a way to start.
It's looking good, she says tentatively, because here everyone comes in saying testing doesn't mean anything, which obviously is kind of true, but they are looking good, and it is so nice to see Ticktum's name up at the top because he's good. He's a very talented driver, but we're never seeing him because he's at the back and just like you said, just petering around. So it's exciting to see it, and Beckman as well is P4, so just behind. He literally was, I think, just over a tenth off of Ticktum's fastest lap, which is pretty good considering he's not had a lot of running in Formula E cars himself. So yeah, looking quite good actually.
Yeah, I must admit, because we felt for Sergio. It'd be interesting to get your opinion on Sergio Sette Camara here, because I don't think he did a lot wrong to not be in the seat, but it seems a bit like with Norman Nato. as we did the feature with him, when he's obviously the greatest journeyman in Formula E, hopping from team to team after every season. But he said the reason for that was politics, and it feels like politics has got in the way for Sergio Sette Camara here, because obviously this deal with Porsche, and they've wanted a Porsche driver to be in, so you've got Beckman in potentially driving, even though it's not confirmed, which is still quite funny in itself. And obviously we've got Simona Di Silvestro doing the women's test, which is also another Porsche reserve driver. So clearly Porsche have had a bit of an say in it. And I think it's a big shame that Sergio Sette Camara is not on the grid, because he took that ERT into the duels. If anything, you could argue he outperformed Ticktum last season.
Yeah, he's one of those ones that's just always been quite solid. He was one that just didn't always necessarily stand out to me, and I think obviously that is by way of him being in that team and towards the back, and obviously you don't have the opportunities to shine. But he was never one of those ones where I could think, oh yeah, he did this wrong. There's no incident that I can think, oh, I see why they got rid of him. So I absolutely 100% agree that it's probably politics. When all the news is kind of coming through with driver announcements and whatever, and you don't necessarily always register it. And then it was sort of, I was writing them all down and having a proper look at who was there, and I was like, where is he? Where's Sergio? I don't understand where he is. And I was like, oh, of course he's not in the team. They've obviously not confirmed that Beckman's going to stay, but I mean, if he performs well, they probably will. And again, he's a Porsche reserve driver. There's the politics playing into that.
And I think there's probably politics still going on, right? Because for the reason for them not to be confirmed in the first place, right? And that clearly has to be contractual, which is mad when you think about it. Going in, once we conclude these tests in a couple of days' time, we're a month away from Sao Paulo. A month.
Yeah.
And you haven't confirmed your drivers, and you've done pre-season testing, which
but I cannot think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I cannot think of a time that team's gone to the test and been like, yeah, so these two are doing our test, but they're not necessarily driving for us. They're just doing the testing. That's so strange.
The only time that has happened that I can recall is season 2. Whenever Jaguar joined first time, Jaguar did a shootout for the second seat. It was like Harry Tinknell was there, Adam Carroll won it, Alex Lynn was there, he didn't win it. And they did that publicly. Normally with BMW, how Jake Dennis got the seat, right? It was done in those private manufacture days. So that's how, and Jake Dennis won that, and then got to pre-season testing. But Jaguar on their first season did that publicly, and every day there was a different driver in that Jaguar for pre-season testing, and Adam Carroll was the person that won it. So it's the last time I can remember that happening. Was Jaguar's first season alongside Mitch Evans. Mitch Evans, boom, got you, mate. Who's going to join? But it was interesting. Harry Tingle, Alex Lynn, Adam Carroll. There's one other that has escaped me, but it's in the issue with James Barkley on the magazine. And I did remember it when I interviewed James Barkley, because I'd researched it, because I needed to remind myself. But I can't remember. There's one name that escaped me.
There's names written down in pen on your hand.
One name that has escaped me. So let's look at, I've got the times here for day session 3. So we've got them up here, because obviously in the afternoon session, I'm hoping it pops up, but slowly it does. There we go. Maximilian Gunther. Again, obviously his move to DS, doing bits, or 128.408 for him, so being faster. Dan Ticktum there second, 128.439. So again, very close. Vern, though, DS, if there's a slip up from Jaguar or Porsche this season, DS could be there. Beckman again for Cairo, doing an amazing job. Mahindra, we're going to get into them in a minute. 5th and 6th. Only 3 thousandths between each other. Nick Cassidy down in 7th. He stopped today on track, so he was one of the 2 red flags that we had. Sam Bird causing the other one. Zay Maloney in 8th in Lola. Jake Dennis 9th. And Mitch Evans was 10th. And to run down the rest of them, because I've got them here, Muller was 11th. Roland 12th. Verline, the champion, obviously, in 13th, with Da Costa 14th. So despite Porsche potentially doing quite well, not a massive day, although Verline was 4th in the morning session. Buemi and France 15th and 16th, as maybe some struggles going on with Envision, so we'll talk about that. NATO 17th, Di Grassi 18th. Barnard, Bird, Hughes and Van Dorn, we're going to talk about them in a moment, because they were quite special, and there is a reason for why they are down at the bottom, and we'll get into that a little bit later, because I know we have a McLaren fan on the call and we'll reveal McLaren then. But before we get into the calls, let's talk Mahindra, because it is a very, very, very big year for Mahindra. I think they've been petering at the back. They got Frederick Bertrand in, who we have an interview with, who we can hear from as well a little bit later on. They're in year 2. He's calling this year 2, right? So when he first took over, that was foundation year, year 0, see where we are. Last season was year 1. This is year 2. So I think for Mahindra, we need to see a step up this season. I think, and seeing them 5th and 6th today, it's a good start to seeing potentially this step up, which I think is massively important, because they're not signed up for Gen 4 as a manufacturer, which is also important. They could continue as a customer, but as a manufacturer, they are not signed up to Gen 4 yet. So there's a lot of things going on in the background at Mahindra.
Yeah, it feels like this year is one of those kind of do or die years. Like, not die, that's dramatic, but it's one of those, like, you need to impress us now, because I think it's a lot of, you can give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay, they've got a new management. Okay, this is their second year, but technically only their first year. Now it's like, this is their second year. We need to see improvements. They've got such a strong driver lineup with, it's time to kind of see some real results. So it's going to be interesting seeing how they do. And I think you're right, there is a lot kind of ticking along in the background. They're one of those teams that, I mean, just you don't necessarily always know what's going on with them at face value. It feels like, it looks like they're doing okay or something, and then, something will come out of the background. You're like, oh, okay, that's thrown me. But I want to see them do better, because, with like De Vries and Mortara, it's like they need to be up there fighting, and it's a shame if they're not, and you can't help but wonder how Mahindra kind of wasting their drivers.
But they signed up for it. At the end of the day, they signed up. They signed a 3-year deal, right, last season.
Yeah.
So they believed in Frederick's plan. So Frederick has put the plan to them, and both of them have gone, yes, all right. But putting a plan to a driver is one thing, executing it is another, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So for Frederick, and we'll hear from him a little bit later, he's got to deliver, right? This car has got to be a big step forward, right? Mahindra technically had one of the worst powertrains on the grid going into the start of Gen 3, and they can't have the worst going into today, basically, going into Gen 3 Evo, right? Because this is make or break for them, whether they stay in the championship, whether they become a customer team. There is talks of Mercedes coming in to, become the manufacturer back, and they'd be partnered with Mahindra, so it'd be like a Mahindra Mercedes potentially. That's one rumor that is flying about, but very interesting. So what we'll do now is we will hear from Edoardo Mortara, who spoke to our very own Mr. Jack Pickering earlier today.
How are you finding testing so far?
Difficult. I must say that this Yarama racing track is pretty challenging. It's a lot of high-speed corners where, it's actually pretty demanding for us drivers. On top of that, we have to discover a lot of things. This new Gen 3 Evo car, we have a new powertrain, so there's plenty to do, and so we are gathering as much data as we can, and hopefully we are going to be able to have the best choices, or the right choices, let's say, for this season.
What is it like coming to a circuit where we weren't supposed to be here? So you've had to rock up, do the track walk, and then just go out and just go. And the circuit isn't Formula E realistic. So how much can you really learn from this week?
Yeah, as you said, like, it's not really Formula E. So we have usually some other racing tracks. So we're used to maybe other racing tracks, but it's good to be coming in this I would say old-fashioned racing tracks where you need a lot of courage, you need to commit. Will it be helpful for us in order to understand what works, what's not working? I've got no idea. Hopefully.
And obviously last year you sort of built over the season went on, and you peaked in. Obviously, you had the pole in Berlin, but the double points finish in London was huge for the team. But there seems to be like pardon the pun, but a different sort of energy coming out of the team this year. That there is something that you could potentially be fighting consistently for points and potentially the odd podium as well this year. Can you feel the difference from last year's car to this year's car?
Definitely, there's been a lot of work done by the engineers. This year, hopefully this will be enough, let's say, for us to be competitive. We've improved so much in terms of hardware, in terms of software. As you rightly said, in the second part of last year's season, we were already more competitive. We were starting to show a little bit more pace. We were able to grab some good points, effectively in Portland, also in London. It's always good actually to finish well. So hopefully it's going to be good for next year.
All right, cheers, Adam.
And we are back. I know it's really important to just pick up on that Mahindra did finish last season quite well. You know, I was in Berlin when he took pole, Mortara, and yes, the double points finish obviously was really important. So it shows Mahindra on the up, and it's just that next step of progression, and I think that's what we want to see from the test and especially come Friday when they probably go full attack, right? Where are they? And if they are in that top 10, if they're pushing in that top 10, then we know Mahindra have made a step forward.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't need them to be right at the very top because, like Mortara was saying, they're here to learn and they can't take too much away from this track because they're never going to race here again, which is a shame because I really like this track. But yeah, I think it's one of those ones that we want to see progress more than maybe genuine outright results at this point. We want the team to be coming away with it like a sense of positivity and like, okay, we've got something we can build upon. Let's see where we can go. And like you were saying, towards the end, they were starting to get there. So it's like, can they carry that momentum forwards to this test and then carry the test momentum forwards to the start of the season? And looking at their performance in the last session today, it's possible. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they do the rest of the time.
Yeah, we do have their laps. I've got all their laps done. So Mortara has currently done 112 laps so far in testing. The Freeze 113. So they have done 225 laps in total, which is the fourth, because Andretti and Maserati have done 226 and McLaren are leading that on 235. But they are at the top pretty much in terms of laps. So car's reliable, which is good.
Which is very good.
There seems to be some pace in there for Mahindra, which is really important. But let's go talk to Nikki, because I know Nikki is very much dying to talk about McLaren. Nikki, you're on the FE bar. How are you?
I'm all right.
Hello. What would you like to talk about? I assume it's McLaren.
You guessed, Jack.
Go on.
I just feel a little bit gutted for what happened to Sam earlier.
Yeah, it's only a stoppage though. Like he's still done 116 laps of testing. So yes, he's had a stoppage, but it's not too bad so far, I'd say.
But I've got a bit of worry, right? Because like the new Lola and the new ERT team, whatever they're called, are actually like above them.
Yes.
Because when they finished today, they were sort of like second to last. So that's sort of making me worry whether they will actually be okay in the season, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I fully get that as a McLaren fan, but I've got some good news for you. News for you. Don't panic just yet. Taylor Barnard didn't do any laps at 350 kilowatts. So in the morning session, he did a lap time of a 1 minute 30.344. Which was at 300, which was 16th fastest. So he was 16th fastest at 300. Everybody was at 350. So set their fastest lap on a 350. So Barnard,
including Sam on that.
Sam was 6th fastest in the morning session, so at 1:29.107. So I'm assuming that in the afternoon session they focused on race running because Bird and Barnard only ran at 300. So
Right.
their lap times, and you can tell that you could probably tell that by looking, because if you look at Lucas Di Grassi's time, it's a 1:29.739, right? Whereas then it's a massive drop off to Barnard at 1:32. So you can tell that they were running at 300, and Maserati, because obviously Hughes was the fastest in the morning. Then Hughes is running at 1:28, then running at 1:35, which I'm surprised that they're running that far down off the pace, Hughes and Van Dorn, considering that they both did over 40 laps this afternoon. So, but they also didn't run at 350. But I'm sure their race pace isn't that slow, considering that he was doing a 1:28.
I hope not. I hope not, because I'd love McLaren to have a very decent season.
Yeah, of course.
Considering their pace last season, and obviously Sam's win, and all the bad luck they had last season as well.
Yeah, Jasmine, anything you would like to add?
Just on the stoppages, I always tell myself this is a bit of a coping strategy, but you want the stoppages to happen now and not on track during one of the races. This is the perfect time for stoppages. I'm always like, get all the stoppages out of the way now. Get it out your system.
That's what I said to my daughter. Because I've been told like 3 or 4 different things. I was told it was a technical thing, that Sam went in the gravel and you had to move out the way of another car.
He did go in the gravel. That is correct.
So,
But these things.
But to be fair, Jack, I'd rather him make the mistakes now, like Jasmine said, in testing than do it in a race.
Yep. And obviously,
Which he did a lot of last season, to be fair.
Yeah. True. I was gonna say, think of it as a dress rehearsal, right? Like, it's just now's the time to just iron everything out. And also, like you were saying, kind of not knowing maybe what caused it, but I also think that shows the team's working through it and trying to, work it out. And you don't always necessarily want to pin it straight on something that happened on track if it could be something that happened because of the car. But you also don't want to give away everything, because you don't want all the other teams to go.
Otherwise, you do it to your rivals. Yeah,
exactly. You're giving away your trade secrets.
Yeah. I just want McLaren to have a good season, and I would love Sam to have a season where he didn't get the bad luck that he's had in the past, because I personally believe he's a very good driver, and he's still in Formula E for a reason.
Well, yeah, he's starting his 11th year.
I think he's probably one of the most successful drivers in Formula E that just hasn't had a championship.
Yeah, and
I fully agree with that.
Yeah, he might be the Sterling Moss of Formula E. One of the greatest drivers not to have an actual championship. But yeah, won lots of races. It'd be interesting to see. I think, it's still early days, and I know we're on this show, right, trying to make content, trying to make something out of this stuff, right, and looking and trying to analyze it, and maybe over-analyze it, but you've got to, right? If you've got to
as you know, Jack, because I've never spoken to Jasmine, but Jack will tell you I am a massive McLaren fan. Formula 1, Formula E, IndyCar.
Really?
So I've been a massive fan since I was like 9 years old. My first racing hero was Senna.
When it was Button and Hamilton. I was a hard McLaren fan during that period.
I mean, I was born in '79, so I grew up with Senna. So basically, that's where my passion came for McLaren.
I'll do it to you. That'll turn you into a McLaren fan, seeing Senna drive. That's for sure.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm really happy with it. I'm really also happy as well that the Formula 1 team have done pretty well this season. Okay, Norris ain't going to get the Drivers' Championship this season, but to turn a team around like where they were 2 years ago is phenomenal. What that team's done. No, Andrea Stella, Zach Brown have just turned it around into hopefully a championship winning team.
Fingers crossed for you, Nikki. Fingers crossed. But we'll let you go.
And hang on a minute. I think this is why I'm like Formula E, because I would love McLaren to win the World Championship in Formula E as well.
Yep.
And maybe that's why I'm overthinking stuff.
Maybe. But I'm sure, look, Ian James is a great team principal. And
100%. He's already got 2 championships under his belt, hasn't he?
So he knows what he's doing. So eventually, McLaren are working their way up after, the transition period is never easy. No matter how we spoke to Ian James, and he was in, I'm sure you read it. He said the transition wasn't easy, and it's about building it all back up. But even though there was lots of people that moved over from Mercedes to McLaren, it's still a challenge. There's still lots of nuances that you've got to achieve.
I think as well, when you come from a championship winning team and then you go into an independent team or whatever, or you change your name or you change the brand, it's a hard transition because everybody looks at you like, why are you not winning? Why are you not doing this, that, and the other? Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
But personally, for me, I think getting the win last season was a big positive. And how McLaren, even though McLaren finished 7th in the championship, I think everything that happened last season, most of it was a positive.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Could Sam have been in title contention if he didn't have his injury? But then you wouldn't have Taylor in the seat this year, would you? Because,
Yeah,
it's just things
that's
happen
true.
for a reason, don't they?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Nikki, we have to let you go because we've got the wonderful Nick
Yeah, all
Golding,
right.
ready and waiting to come tell us some more information about what happened today. So,
All right.
we'll
I'm
speak to
sorry
you
about
soon.
my rant.
No,
but there you are.
don't never
No,
apologise.
please.
Never.
That's what you're here for.
That's what you're here for. That's what the show's about.
Exactly.
The
And this
show's
is what I
for you to
love
rant.
about the FE
rant.
bar. This is what I like about the FE bar because I had some trolls really, really say some nasty things about me because I was sticking up for Lando at the weekend. But I can safely say here right now, I love coming in the Formula E bar because my opinions are always heard and I'm never judged about what I say. So
Never will be.
Oh, that's so
that's why I
nice
like
to
being
hear.
here.
Never will be. We love having you on, Nikki. Okay?
All right, Jack.
Right.
See you later.
See you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Okay, so what we're going to do now before we get lovely Mr. Nick Golding from Racing News 365 on to give us a little bit of a roundup of the day, and we will be hearing from Mr. Pickering as well a little bit later on in the show. We're going to take a small break, but in the meantime, you will listen to Frederick Bertrand give his thoughts on Mahindra's start to pre-season testing, and we'll be back with Nick Golding after this.
This week, because obviously we weren't supposed to be here. How is it sort of adapting to this sort of scenario where we've come here, no expectations, the guys haven't done any testing? How is it different to what Valencia would have been?
I think first of all, what happened there is so terrible that there was no chance and no question for us that we could race in or test in such a place where they have so much drama to survive and to live with. So the move was definitely a good idea. Find an option which was, in terms of logistics, easy to do for everyone. Was not so easy probably for Formula E, but they did a very good job identifying this track, which honestly suits quite well to the car. And what has been really well managed is the transition from a place which has not been used to any Formula E activity up to now into a place where we feel that it's working 100% as usual. So yeah, it's a very great move and great management of the move. For us, it's important still to test this week because it's important for us to have a maximum of understanding of the new cars, all the new things which are coming into the championship, including fast charging probably, before we have to send all the package to Sao Paulo. So very good move, well managed, and finally a very good result when we look at the way the things are going here. It seems to be a smooth test up to now, and we are all happy that it goes this way.
Are you having to be a little bit cautious though, in terms of you don't want to get ahead of yourself too early? Because we know what happened in season 9. Well, obviously we got to Mexico. You got the pole and the podium with Lucas, and then it sort of didn't continue that way for the rest of the season. So is it something that you have to go look, this is great, but let's just keep ourselves grounded for the moment, and let's just keep to our targets?
Oh la la, it's more than grounded that we have to say for the moment what we are doing here is a test. So be world champion of a test doesn't make any sense. Definitely, I think what was important is in our construction phase, we needed those tests to make sure that we have enough time to race with the others, understand a bit more what we are doing compared to the others. But at the end, we do the test for ourselves. We don't look so much at what the others are doing. For sure, it's always interesting, but that's not the main thing. Everybody has his own program, everybody has his own strategy behind the test. So to take any conclusion out of it would be totally stupid and make no sense. The goal is to use this week to be ready for Sao Paulo. And in Sao Paulo, we can start to count because definitely it will be the start. How we start there? The best we can for sure. But this time for sure, if you compare it to season 9, as you said, we want to keep consistently improving and not going down. So The car we have developed is definitely a much better car. We have a level of confidence which is much higher. The team is structured in a much better way, so we have all the reason to be ambitious and hopeful. But there is 10 other teams thinking exactly the same. And from what we see here, the fight will be a tough fight for the full season.
All right, cheers, Fred. Thank you.
And we are back, and we are joined by Nick Golding from Racing News 365. Nick, how's your day?
Hello.
been? How are you?
It is. I am very well, very tired. It's been a week so far of minimal sleep, but I'm standing strong, happy to be in Madrid. And I mean, we've had a full day today, 2 sessions, 6 hours of running, 3 red flags. Yesterday was the smooth day. Today we had a bit of chaos. And yeah, lots and lots of stories. But tomorrow is the day that the morning will feel normal. The afternoon, at least the start of the afternoon, is significant.
Yep, it is significant with the attack charge. But before we get on to that, Nick, what were the main stories that came out today for you? Because obviously, like we talked about Cairo earlier, they performed admirably with Dan Tickton.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe surprise 1 or 2, I don't know. But like, what was your main stories? What was the main things coming out of the paddock today?
I mean, a couple of things, obviously, very quickly to run through the red flags. Obviously, the first red flag in the first session was due to Sam Bird getting beached in the gravel at turn 1. Cold tyres, he was letting somebody pass who was on a hot lap and simply just went into the gravel from the cold tyres. The gravel here is so deep, he couldn't obviously escape, which is why he was then pushed back. And obviously, as soon as he was pushed back and the session restarted, he went out again, so that was all good. The second one also was Nick Cassidy, who just ground to the halt just after the pits entry along the start-finish straight.
Yep.
Jaguar have got some work to do. Obviously, they missed the opening day on Tuesday due to the budget cap breach, and the punishment, as well as the fine, was obviously missing the first session along with Nissan. For Jaguar then to have lost on Nick's side of the garage, okay, only 25 minutes. That's still 25 minutes they would have rather have had on the circuit gathering data rather than 25 minutes having their car being recovered on a pickup truck.
Yeah, they've only done 128 laps
Yeah,
altogether.
they've got
Which
some
is the
catching up
lowest
to
of
do.
everybody. You know, when you consider
Yeah.
the penalty, and you've got McLaren on 235, so you can see how the penalty is impacting them.
What are Nissan on out of interest?
Nissan are on 145.
Yeah, so again, though, a lot of that difference will simply be of obviously where, given that the laps have been on a race run, you're looking at around a 134, 135. So actually, at least probably 10 more laps could have been done by Nick.
Yeah.
So I said Jaguar got some catching up to do. And then obviously one of the weird stories today was the final red flag, really, really brief, and opted to do damage to the curb at turn 9, which is being repaired overnight. It's easy to forget this circuit has not had cars with this type of downforce in a very, very long time. It's normally for junior categories, much lower single seaters, or most recently truck racing.
Yep.
So the surface is got cracks all over the place. It's very old school. Camber everywhere, and one of the curbs is basically just can't take anymore. So there are overnight repairs. But what's really interesting is speaking to Antonio Felix da Costa and Pascal Wehrlein tonight after the second session, and asking about the damage, if they saw it, they actually didn't know why the red flag had happened. So it's obviously something which the FIA has obviously noticed and is dealing with quickly rather than something the drivers have complained about. But in terms of stories, for me, the big two is the Stellantis power teams, not just DS Penske, obviously who topped the second session, but also Maserati, obviously, who jaked up in the morning. The Stellantis powertrain is looking really, really good. Of course, there's only so much you can read into testing because obviously Panama is so different to Sao Paulo and it's so different to any of the permanent circuits we go to as well because it's so old school. It's only a grade 2 circuit as well.
Yep.
So it can't actually be raced on properly by Formula E, except for the mock race, which is obviously a bit of a different story. So for me, the Stellantis powertrain are the ones who definitely made a big step. And speaking to Jeff, he said that as well. It's clear we've made the step, but we won't know how big a step until we get through the first few rounds, which is pretty general. Yep. And the other big surprise is Kiro. I don't know what I'm saying with a bit of a
You're
Spanish
saying
pronunciation.
because
but
that's how you
they
say
are
it. That's how you say it.
But they are looking, again, it's really hard to say because you don't want to get sucked into the excitement and sucked into the, oh my God, P2, P4. But Dan, and to give him credit, David Beckman,
Yep.
in what is an audition, it's obviously a year-old or 2-year-old Porsche package.
Yep.
It's looking good. Yes, that could be because it is a 2-year-old package, so that the drivers, or in particular Dan and the team, obviously have a lot of experience from the initial Gen 3 car.
Yep.
Whether that's maybe because that's why they're performing so well, but I'm really intrigued now how Kiro are going to do when it gets to the first couple of rounds, because they could get possibly some big points in the first few rounds, maybe then fall away as the other teams catch up with the actual Gen 3 Evo cars, but there's quite clearly going to be a lot of question marks about the Illuminous yellow team.
It does
coming
look
in the first
nice.
few rounds. It looks very nice. It's going to
Does
look
look
incredible
nice.
under the light, and it's very, very bright.
Yeah, I can imagine. I have a question to follow up on what you just said. You called it an audition for Beckman and Ticknam. Do you think it's an audition, or do you think it's just contractual? Because that's my theory. The reason that they haven't been signed is just there's got to be some contractual issues going on with Porsche in the background. That is the main reason. Because surely we're a month away. They're not going to put someone else in the car.
I agree, and you also have to look at the drivers who they're running in the female test. And I think what's interesting as well is that, unlike in previous seasons, the gap between obviously the preseason test and the first round, there's 4 weeks. That's not a lot of time if you're going to not go with David alongside Dan. That's not a lot of time to get somebody up to speed, even if it's Sergio. That's not a lot of time to get somebody up to speed, to get them in the simulator, getting adjusted to the Gen 3 Evo, whereas David now is going to have gathered all this data for the team. So I would be really, again, weird things that happened is Formula E. I would be really surprised if it's not him. And actually, in all fairness, based on what he's done for the first day and a half, there's no reason why he doesn't deserve the seat, to be honest.
No, 100%. No, I agree. It's like we was talking last night with the fans, and we were like, "Is there a time difference that he needs to be?" But that's incredibly harsh, I think, to how far slower does he have to be from Dan Ticknam to not get the seat.
Yeah.
But at this moment in time, after today's afternoon session, you think, sign him
I
up.
don't see why not, and I don't see why not. But again, it's so difficult because this is, the drivers all know that no matter who leaves this test with the fastest lap time, that's not ultimately the most important thing. The most important thing is who's going to be on pole come the season over in Sao Paulo. That could very well be the Jag, be one of the Jags. It could very well be one of the Nissans. It could very well be a Mahindra. It could be one of the teams who, haven't shown us their full card or all their cards yet. So that's the really difficult thing to read from testing. It is a case of you don't want to get sucked into the timesheets because, yes, of course, they make for great reading, and that's what we all base our session reports off from.
Yep.
But ultimately, the most important thing is what you mentioned a few minutes ago. It's more about getting the data, getting the laps gathered, and those who do the most laps have the most to look over and the most to help them get stronger going into the opening rounds.
Indeed, 196 for Kiro at the moment, down on 103.
Which is all right.
David 93 currently. Lola, the only ones that do surprise me, they're on 184, 95, and 89. But before we talk about anything else, Jasmine, anything that you wanted to throw to Nick?
My main question is how bright does the car look on track? That's what I want to know. Is like, are we talking like fluorescent, or what's the level of yellow here?
I mean, Lola is, there's obviously the IKEA jokes, and that reminds me of like the yellow submarine, that kind of yellow. The Kiro it's Valentino Rossi yellow. It is.
Ooh, I like that.
It is so fluorescent to the point that it is genuinely, when the sun shines on it, which it has done today, it's been a beautiful day, it's been really warm, it is really bright to the point you generally can't look at the car without squinting. It is that bright.
Oh my God.
So I'm thinking for the likes of, in particular, Jeddah, for London, for the races we have under the lights, it is going to look so cool. Cool.
It gave me Jordan vibes, Jordan F1 vibes when they were yellow. But it sounds like from your description that it is brighter than the yellow that was in the Jordan.
So much yellow. The Jordan is like the Lola yellow.
Yeah.
The Kiro is Rossi. It is. it's even brighter than Rossi. It is so, but it's brilliant, and it looks quick as well. And that's the big thing I think that I've personally taken away from the first day and a half is that the cars do look quick. They look the new body kit in particular with the front wing. The cars look fast. They look a bit edgier. Just coming out the corners, the speed they're carrying, and of course at this circuit as well, the way it's so flowing and there's so much elevation change. The cars look great, and they just look visibly faster. The one thing which is really interesting, actually, speaking to the Porsche boys, I think tonight, is a lot of the teams today, because they've been gathering more race data rather than one lap pace. There's been a lot of the teams following each other, basically seeing what it's like in the slipstream, gathering data from that. Interesting on that was the 4 Stellantis-powered drivers were all working together and spent a good amount of today actually driving around together, changing positions, getting used to the slipstream. So it's interesting to see Maserati and DS clearly working together. But speaking to Pascal and Antonio, they were saying that despite the new body kit, despite obviously all the changes to the car, the more downforce, actually the slipstream effect is pretty identical to last season. It's not a massive change. That is one thing that they're intrigued to see about tomorrow, but obviously at least for a couple of laps in the mock race, there's going to be then 22 cars altogether. How big an impact that will have will be interesting, but the big change is the tyres. That's the thing that they are all screaming about, because simply they're just getting through them.
Yep. Then they are softer. That's what Sebastian Buemi told us. Like they are softer, and he's getting used to those new tyres. But we've got to talk attack charge, because that is what you're hinting at. Very well is the attack charge race, which we did see last season, but obviously it was dummied and it was simulated without actually being plugged in. This season it will be plugged in, and we will see it. What are we expecting? What do you think? How big is this for Formula E?
I mean, well, for those who obviously read the piece, I spoke with FCO, a friend of FE Bar, with Jeff Dodds this morning, and of course, attack charge came up. There is going to be the mock race tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m. It's scheduled for 24 laps, but as we've seen in the past, sometimes it does just come to an end or only a few cars finish. What's happened is in the past, when they've had to pit to pretend to attack charge, they then basically just retire from the race if they're not doing very, very well. This time, they're likely going to go longer because they are going to be actually using attack charge. This is, I asked Jeff, I was like, is this, because this is the last time they're going to get to test all 22 cars together. And that's the big thing, and see how it does work in the race, where it spits them out, how far behind they come out behind other people, how big a difference there is between pitting on, say, lap 7 and then pitting for attack charge on lap 8. So that'll be interesting. But I asked Jeff outrightly, is this do or die for attack charge? Because if it doesn't work, where do you go from it? If it does, when's it going to be used? Formula E want this, crucially, if it does come in for season 11, it's the double-header.
Yeah.
Because they want to see, as we saw a little bit with the different minutes for attack mode and the different number of laps, FE want to have 2 races where effectively one race could be just the usual, just attack mode or something, and the other race obviously featuring the attack charge as well. So it offers 2 different formats, 2 different spectacles for fans, and of course then throws up a few surprises. He openly admitted that this race, after initially saying it wasn't, he then thought about it, but actually, this is do or die. Because if it works, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if it just works pretty well, then it will be used in some races in season 11. However, if it doesn't work, then it won't be introduced until at least Gen 4, because if it doesn't work, you can't, as he was pointing out, you couldn't then introduce it for season 12, because the big goal is to introduce it for some rounds this season and then for all rounds in season 12. That's the goal. If it doesn't work, the team simply just won't let them go through with it, because if there are problems with how the team use it, that's on them. But if there's issues with the charges themselves and the technology, and there was one small little problem today when watching Lola doing one of their attack charges. I can't remember which driver it was on, but actually, interestingly, the best way to explain it is the charger goes into, if you imagine going to a petrol station, filling up your car, they have to undo a cap which covers the attack charge port, basically. So they unplug that and then plug in the charger. The plug on one of the Lolas wasn't coming out, and when they then put the charger in, it wasn't actually turning. The charger wasn't coming on. The way to show that is when the charger does go in, there's something really useful for fans. When the charger goes in, the car starts flashing. The flashes start slowing as the charge builds up. It flashes faster and faster and faster. The team then know when it's done, because it will then flash once for a very long time. It will then flash white. They can then take it out. The car goes away. when it doesn't work, it flashes red. And that happened once for the Lowland. Of course, they then managed to do it successfully, but it just shows that this is a technology which is going to have problems.
Yeah.
And I personally think, I hope tomorrow's a success, because I think it'll be interesting to see it in use. But I think it's something that my big concern is it cannot influence a championship should it go wrong. Because the last thing we want to see is a driver, leading the championship, about to win the title, they come into their attack charge and it doesn't work because there's something wrong with technology. It's no different. If it's the team's fault, that's no different to an F1, a team struggling to get a tyre off a car. No different. It's to do with the technology. If the technology works, regardless if the team operates it wrongly, it will be introduced. But that's if it works across the paddock. It is do or die. Despite being pre-season, it's a massive, massive day.
I was very harsh on Formula E for attack charge last season and the teams, and if it is die for attack charge, it's a huge loss, because if you think about it, for the technology and what it brings, obviously charging at 600 kilowatts, cars can only charge at 300 kilowatts at the moment. So the technology coming to road cars, which is what this championship is about at the end of the day, it's a huge failure on the part. So I pray that it works.
And the big thing as well is that this technology was meant to come in for the start of season 9. We're now almost at the start of season 11. And as Jeff said, if it doesn't work, then you can't then bring it in just for some rounds in season 12, because then you've got Gen 4 and everything changes again. And there are going to be some massive decisions to make after this race. Obviously, one by Kiro about David.
Yep.
But for Formula E, the really big one is about, do they go through with attack charge? Do they just give it a go? Or do they put their hands up and say, you know what, we've spent time on this, and obviously a lot of money as well, and that's the other problem, and say it didn't work. Something else that's really interesting is coming to my mind on terms of the 2-month gap. Obviously, you spoke about a lot on the FE bar. And I spoke to about that. And of course, it's very frustrating for them. But obviously, sometimes, when things happen with politics, unfortunately, there's not a lot they can necessarily do with the new
100%.
If the new government don't want Formula E.
It was very interesting. Sorry, Nick. It was very interesting what Alberto said that day, that they had Plan B, right? So Plan B is whatever Plan B was, Marrakesh, Punta del Este. These are tracks that he named that obviously there still must be in the pool in the system. So whatever Plan B was, they looked at and they decided against Plan B, or they couldn't do Plan B. But then he wants Plan B in for next season, in for season 12, which I think's and Plan A. Maybe you can shed some more light.
So Thailand isn't a complete no-no. Of course, season 11, but from season 12, Formula E wanted to go there still, and it could still potentially happen in the future that it's not a definite no. It's just for season 11. In terms of a backup, a B option, I asked this. Are we going to get, to cover a TBC that becomes nothing? Are we going to have some backups in place to make sure we do get a race?
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff's not keen on it, because of course, first, it's a lot of money.
Yep.
It has to be a permanent circuit, so you can't just potentially close some streets and then not use it. And of course, as well for the fans, to buy tickets and stuff. And from that point of view, listening to it, it does make a lot of sense for them to not use, and have a backup. It's difficult for the fans, of course, and for us as journalists and those who love the series to cover it, it's frustrating. But actually, to have a backup in place is not a cheap job.
No, I understand that. I disagree, and I'm interested to get Jasmine's thoughts on this too. This is why I disagree with what Jeff just said there. We haven't announced it. So if you've not announced this backup race, if the TBC race becomes, let's say it was Marrakesh, let's say Marrakesh is Plan B.
Yeah.
Well, then fans aren't out of pocket. No roads have been closed because nothing's been. We've gone right. We can't go to you. So now can you hold the race? And if they say we'll hold the race, then you'll go splendid. We'll host the race. That's how I see it. I can't see. I know there's more probably to it, but in terms of a simplistic point of view, that's how it feels like it should work.
What it is, though, it's also more than the bigger problem is the logistics, because you then got to plan into the calendar. How are you going to ship the freight there? What do you need to get the freight there? And that's the bigger thing, because to be honest, you could sell tickets a week before the event, and odds on you'll get a decent number of fans there. The bigger problem is making sure all the drivers get there, but most importantly, not just the cars, but Formula E's equipment themselves. It's, to put into some context, I think I mentioned it yesterday. The way they've managed to make this test happen is by 12 lorries between them doing 37 trips between Friday
She
to
said
Monday from Valencia to Madrid. That's the level it's taken just to make this happen, and there are still things arriving to this day. Not everything's here yet, so that's the really, really big thing. So I get what you're saying, and I get fans' frustrations, and I know I was one of them who's frustrated. But having sat down with Jeff and explained the reasoning why, it does make a lot of sense, because there is so much behind putting a race on. I know a lot more than perhaps most people realise, and it's because we don't have to think about what happens to put a race on. We just think about watching the race and enjoying it.
Yeah, and I'll come to
There is so much more than that.
Yeah, I'll come to Jasmine on that, because I praised Alberto right afterwards, after the interview, because I said it showed good leadership, right? That they weren't just going to chuck something in that 2-month gap, right? To please us, effectively. They thought, you know what, it's not the right thing to do. We'll work on it a bit more and maybe solidify it for next season. And I think, Jasmine, that's probably a sensible way of looking at things.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think at the end of the day, we'd all rather an event that's put on well and nothing goes wrong, it's all smooth sailing, even if it means we kind of miss out. And it's such a double-edged sword for the series as well. I think they kind of can't win, because if they rush and try and fill the gap with something and it is kind of rubbish, then they're going to get loads of flack for it. And then if they don't, fans are still unhappy. But I think Nick's totally right. Like, there is so much that goes into putting, hosting a race. It's the amount of politics alone, before we even get into logistics and everything. The politics of hosting, it's crazy, both within the racing series and then dealing with the countries and the counties and whatever particular city and municipality they host it in. There's so many little layers, and it's I think, like Nick said, it's something we don't really think about, how complicated this is. And I totally agree that it's not worth cramming something in for the sake of it. It's worth, just hoping for next year and trying to sort something out and planning it all well in advance, because you don't want a bad event in the end that it all goes wrong or whatever and fans are asking for their money back. It is a tricky situation for the series, though, totally. And I feel for them, because they dealt the card, and it's something that it's not their fault. It's if they're not hosting because of an election, what are you meant to do in that situation?
And the big thing as well is also, not just in racing, it's safety. And I think, as we all know, when we try and do something really quickly at the last minute, a last minute job, mistakes are made more often than not.
Absolutely.
With a Formula E race, whether that be a street circuit or a permanent, safety is paramount, and making sure the safety is in place for drivers, fans, the teams, everyone. That's a long job. It's not a job you can just do in rapid fashion. I think what Effie has done with Panama is extraordinary. It's unbelievable what they've done, and it's one of their greatest achievements as a championship. Obviously, under such horrible circumstances as well, but Effie has risen and gone above and beyond. This is just a test.
No,
there is so much more that goes through a race. So it's a really interesting one. Of course, I guess odds on we'll be discussing the exact same thing in 12 months' time.
Yep.
If there's a TBD next year that happens to not happen.
Probably always. When has there not been a TBD on the calendar? When has there not been one?
It's tradition at this point.
But no, Nick, I've loved the extended Nick at 9 here, or Nick at 9. It's 9 o'clock now. It's been a good one.
It's been like a debate.
It's been a
Nick at 9/10.
Nick at 9 at 10. It's actually 9 o'clock in the UK now, so we've actually hit Nick at 9
on the dot.
On the dot.
On the dot.
But thank you.
No, you're welcome. Perfect time to end.
Actually, before we go, what was your McDonald's order?
So no, it's a good point. So yeah, it's different. So yesterday it was these 20 little Southern chicken bites with a double quarter pounder and cheese. Obviously a large fries, a bottle of water for balance, and also a Milky Bar McFlurry, because McFlurry, Spain has the best McDonald's in the world. I will fight anybody on that. We can have an argument. It's the best in the world. And then today
I'd never
25 nuggets.
Solid.
but with wedges and water for balance and a Milky Bar McFlurry. That's the only thing. Well, the water and the Milky Bar McFlurry is the only like thing that stayed the same because, well, elite combo, and plus I've had no water today, so
There we go.
There
So
you
what was
go.
it? What was it? Same again as what you had yesterday. Hashtag same
Yep.
order. What was it? What was it last year? We had cake, didn't we? We got cake from the cake.
Yeah.
That was good.
I was gonna say I'd never had a McDonald's in Spain until.
Chat. What is your
we
McDonald's
were
order?
over there.
Put it in chat. What is your McDonald's order? That's what we're gonna ask every fan now that comes on. What is their McDonald's order? That is it. What is the McDonald's order? So exclamation mark Discord if you want to come on and talk about your McDonald's order. Nick, we'll let you go, and I know we're going to speak to the boys in a bit, but so tell them to come on whenever they're ready. Whenever you get back.
we're currently in the petrol station. Pico's buying a bottle of Fanta.
No surprises there then. All right.
And we have a 45-minute drive. But...
Oh, okay. Well, you might not make the show then, unless you want to do it from the car. Jack Smith might want to do it from the car and do it on speakerphone.
Okay.
If they want to do it. But if not, no props. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Cool.
Right. Thank you very
tomorrow.
much. See you
Bye,
later.
guys. See you later.
Bye.
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 What a legend Nick is, eh? What a legend. Right. Exclamation mark Discord though, it's a proper thing. Eat some tapas, people. 100% right says. Eat some tapas. Terrible. Boys away, right? What? Just backed off. Terrible. We only had
I was gonna say you can't go wrong with a Spanish McDonald's. I feel like you need to have it at least once just to say you've done it, and then go have some paella or something like that. You know, a Spanish McDonald's is quite good. I loved our one we had on the first night we got to Valencia last year.
Yeah.
I think I had like that weird, like a chicken burger thing with loads of onion in it, but it was like really good. And they sell beer at McDonald's, which is incredible as well.
Yeah. Chris says, easy chicken wrap of the day, bacon, mayo, chicken, plus cheese, and a large Coke.
Ooh.
And a large Coke. I've brought Lou. Lou is currently muted, but I brought Lou into the chat. Lou, welcome to the FE Bar. I hope you're there. I thank you for waiting. I know you've been in there for a long time, and I'm hoping you unmute soon, but I know you're in chat as well. A Whopper, Lou has put in chat. So Burger King. so I know you're there, Lou, so fingers crossed. Yeah. There we go. Hello. Welcome to the FE Bar. We spoke yesterday, thinking maybe not a great day for Kiro. Today, brilliant.
Yeah, I'm still bossing a little bit about it, but it feels a bit hypocritical after yesterday, what I said. But,
but it's positive signs that maybe it might be good at the beginning.
Hopefully, but still also have to be realistic. It's just testing, but at least it's good for the vibe, it's good for the atmosphere, it's good for the moral of the team also.
No, agreed. Jasmine, anything to ask?
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that.
He said it was good for the morale. Good for the morale.
Yeah.
Of the
Yes.
team.
Agree. It was. I'm one of those people that's like every testing session, whatever, I'm like, it doesn't mean anything until it's a team that I kind of want to see do well. I'm like, this means everything. This is great. This is the best.
Yeah, that was me today.
Yeah.
Such a hypocrite.
Is it important also that Beckman did well today? It wasn't just Dan, right? Dan obviously got 2 and 3, but Beckman in P4, you know, you think actually, okay, there might be some merit to him getting the seat.
I looked at the test today with when they were doing their times, and like in the first session when they were both on track doing their 350 laps, and there was like 7/10 of a difference.
Yep.
And in the second session when they both were on track doing their 350s, there was like 4/10 of a difference.
Yep.
And in the end, it got down to 1/10, but then didn't really do a full lap anymore.
Yeah, but 1/10, you take a 1/10 difference between your teammate, I think.
No. Yeah, but when they were on track at the same time, it was a bit more than 1/10. But it still is good, I think.
Yeah.
Whatever that gap is, the 1/10, 4/10, that's decent, I think. And as I said yesterday, I'm now looking at times, and we still don't know exactly what they're trying to do, because also Beckman's 350s were a little bit more clustered and Dan's were more spread out over the whole session, so they were trying different things. So we're comparing times, but we don't actually know that much in a way.
Yeah, of course, of course. If this continues, so if the form continues, does that raise expectations level for you going into Sao Paulo?
Yeah, I have to tell myself today it's just testing and don't get too excited because let's be realistic. They have an old Porsche drivetrain, so it's not going to be this level when we're at Sao Paulo. Still, if they get into the points, it's very good.
Yeah, I don't know what you think, Jasmine, but I know it's the old powertrain. But while everyone's getting used to the new one, it could be a perfect opportunity for Kiro to steal some points at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they could have quite a strong start because that they've got some familiarity with that. They're not kind of wading in with a complete unknown. It's sort of tried and tested. But I do think they're going to be interesting to watch as the season goes on. Like maybe do they get outdeveloped to a degree, kind of with the the more technical aspects and things. And I think they're going to be my one to watch throughout the whole year. I think they're going to be my special team that I kind of focus in on, and I wouldn't mind seeing them do quite well. I definitely think there are actually benefits to having an older powertrain. There's less complete uncertainties getting thrown your way. That they kind of have an idea of how things will work, and while that won't always be the best thing, there's reliability there, which in Formula E of all series, I think reliability is quite a strong point because we've seen so many championship leads and stuff get thrown away from a crash or whatever. So yeah, I think maybe if they keep it clean and just everything is plain sailing for them, they could end quite strongly in the standings this year.
Yeah, the only frustrating thing for me, Lou, I think it's the same frustration for you, is because they're not signed. Getting media out of Kiro is next to impossible, right? Because no one, I haven't seen anyone, any publication, have any Kiro articles. They've all spoke to Zane, they've all spoken to Taylor. We have two. That's the November issue of the Formula Rezone magazine. Right, will be those two. But getting something out of Kiro has been a nightmare. Emailing them, just bouncing, it's just terrible. And especially if they're doing quite well, there's a story there. And it's a shame for fans like yourself that no one's really been able to explore the story.
Yeah, that's a shame. Would have been better for their PR, I think, if they had it announced, even if it was just then announced, and say the second seat is open or something like that. That's true. Would have been a lot better to have that, but they are active on socials. They're sharing their own things. So hopefully that they will still be somewhere available.
Yeah, I hope very soon, because there seems to be a small good news story emerging around Kiro. I couldn't say it for a second. I was going to go back to Cairo for a second.
Kiro. But also what Jasmine said. It looks like I was a little bit afraid before the test started that with everything being so late for them, their preparation would be bad. So that it would be a problematic test like they had last year. It was a disastrous test. Yeah. And it doesn't seem the case to be. So that's actually indeed positive for the beginning of the season, that they don't seem to be struggling with the preparation at least. So that's hopeful.
Hopeful indeed. Lou, thank you so much for coming on. Means the world as always.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, before you go, what's your McDonald's order?
Walk out, go to the Burger King.
Walk out, go to be fair, I do like a good Burger King, especially on the app, right? So I don't know if you've got the app, right? But when I see the two,
no.
We got the app in the UK, and you get the offers, right? And you get 2 Whopper meals for a tenner, and you're like, I can't, but I know I can. And you're like,
that's very cheap.
I can't turn down 2 Whoppers for a tenner. 2 Whopper meals as well, 2 drinks, 2 portions of chips, brilliant.
Wow.
Normally,
I've never had a Whopper.
I'm happy they don't have it.
No, never in my life.
Is that?
Never had a Big Mac either, actually.
Really?
No.
So does that mean I have to take you to a Burger King and a McDonald's to give you to try a Big Mac and a Whopper? Then is that what you're asking? Is that no,
No.
it's not. what
No,
you're
a blind
asking.
taste test could be fun.
A blind taste test could be fun. No, I would say you're missing out, but you're probably not.
Yeah, I think I'm alright actually.
Oh, Lou, thank you so much for coming on.
Nice evening.
No worries. No worries. Right. We did have Blake and we did have Sam, but unfortunately they've left the waiting room. So if you want to come on and you're here, and if you want to come on and have any talk, if not, we're past 9. So the show was 8 till 9, but we did have a very extended Nick at 9. So I did know there was a couple people in the chat. So if you want to come back, me and Jasmine, otherwise we'll talk for a couple of minutes and then we'll wrap up the show and we'll be back tomorrow to find out what happens in day 3 of Formula retesting.
Crunch day.
Crunch day. I think it's an important day. Let's go back to that.
Yeah.
To end where, because you were with me in Valencia and I went hard on the teams last year with the
Certainly.
attack charge because they were all very, very thinking about the sporting and not thinking about the technological side of things. And I still stand by that technological side of things because that's what this series was. I think it has to be successful tomorrow. I think if it is a failure tomorrow and it gets just cancelled altogether, then for me, Formula E has failed, right? It's not being fit for purpose at that present point. Is that a too harsh saying, or is that fair?
I think it's tough. I think that's a little harsh. Just because I do agree that definitely that is the series DNA, right? Is to, develop technology that we can use on road cars. But I think perhaps maybe that was more its DNA towards the start. I think now it has developed into a pretty decent racing series, and we enjoy how different it is from F1 and how different it is from any other type of racing with that whole peloton style and all of that. It's good fun, it's unpredictable, and I think the attack charge is another element of unpredictability, which is quite exciting. But I do agree that serious questions need to be asked if it doesn't take off, because the amount of time, resources, money, investment that's gone into trying to develop this technology, if it doesn't work and it's just completely dead in the water, then it's what was that all for? And where did it go wrong? How could we not, something that's been in the pipeline for so long, how have we not managed to bring that to fruition? And I think there needs to be a bit of introspection from this series to kind of work out why hasn't this worked? Why has it gone wrong?
No, 100%, because you need to deep dive into how this has gone wrong, because if we are trying to bring technology to the road and we fail to bring technology to the road, why hasn't that happened? Now, Formula E it's not Formula E, we have to get this very clear. Formula E aren't the ones doing this technology. It was Williams Advanced Engineering and so forth. But that's who Formula E have employed to do the job, right? And if they haven't been able to do the job, then that's where the questions have to be asked, right? And so forth. Sam has popped back in, actually, so good news. We'll get Sam in. Sam, you're in. Thank you for rejoining the waiting room. Welcome back to the FE Bar. What would you like to talk about?
So what I've recently I did a little summary of today's thing for myself because it's nice to catch up, and I've just noticed with Cassidy having the problem today, and also Buemi having the issue yesterday in the pits, I can only recall these Jaguar having these sorts of issues publicly so far. And could this potentially be the fall from the peak for them as a manufacturer?
It could be. It could well be. And that's the beauty of starting these new powertrain cycles, is you don't know. And when we spoke to Mitch Evans, right, back in March, which is again another magazine issue, and I said to him, I know you've been tired of the bridesmaids, but was last season the last chance? Because you knew going into this season, I've got the car, right? I have the car to win the title, right? But you're going into this season, you don't know. You don't know. DS could be the powerhouse, right? Maserati might have somehow conquered the DS powertrain and become the powerhouse. Or Nissan and McLaren are there, and then all of a sudden your title hopes have gone, and that thing you've been fighting for ages is gone. It was like, I get your point, but I'm not looking at it like that. And I was like, yeah, that's because you're scared. Because you know that effectively it's a free-for-all. Basically, it's a fresh reset. We've hit the reset button. And if Jaguar are struggling reliability issues, it could be an issue going into the first couple of races of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the common assumption was that for like a evolution upgrade, so the homologation cycles, unless it's like a full generational leap, like say to Gen 4, the assumption typically, and I've heard through all the mumbling throughout the community, is that the assumption would be that Jaguar Porsche would be there and the others would potentially still catch up, or the field would close. But so far, like I say, if Jaguar are obviously trying an upgraded powertrain and they're using new techniques or new methods of, building and using new materials, and it's not working as like a gamble to try and get a leap on the others, could this backfire quite badly? And actually, I'm not obviously trying to jump ahead because it's just testing.
Yes.
But could it drag them quite a bit down the order, given that likes of like Mahindra have got a lot to gain?
Yeah, I like you, Sam. You think like me, like trying to find those little conundrums in the little bit of running that we've had so far. I'll bring Jasmine in on this too, because Jasmine, what do you think? I'll just come straight to you now, and then I'll add on.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of going back to what you were saying about Jaguar, I do think maybe that is their time in the sun's up. I mean, again, we're reading into like very little into very little running, but that's what testing's all about, right? Is coming up with all these crazy theories and then being completely wrong on the first race of the season. But it is interesting that, I mean, obviously they didn't have that first session, but we've had a couple of different sessions now. We've had a couple of different front runners, and it's not been a Jaguar powertrain car. So have they kind of, are they maybe middling around in the third fastest? So we're going to be looking at the Penske's. I think possibly. I think it's Porsche are up there. I don't think we need to worry about Porsche. Maybe not necessarily the Porsche team, but the Porsche powertrain is looking very good. But I think we could see some switch arounds with the second fastest. It might be that one race it's the DS Penske's. The next race we're looking at Jaguar come up suddenly, but I don't know. I'm not going into this one thinking this is Mitch Evans' year. I'll be delighted if it is, but I'm not coming into it thinking he's got this in the bag. I think it's going to be interesting, definitely. And obviously we know how much it matters as well to Jaguar Land Rover that they do well in this racing series. So whether we see some movement, if it's a total washout for them, I don't know. But yeah.
It is too early to panic, obviously. We can't, alarm bell shouldn't be ringing just yet. Cassidy was 7th quickest, which is still only 2 tenths off. So we've just owed under 2 tenths off maximum Lincoln, which in Formula E is a lot. The grid is separated, 2 tenths could be 10th in Sao Paulo, for example, 10th or 11th. So, and missing out on the jewels, right? So that could easily be a factor. But yeah, you're right. Going back to your point, because you're expecting Gen 3 Evo to be a evolution, not a revolution. Whereas Gen 4 is the revolution. So you'd expect them to still be high. However, as we've seen in Formula 1 this season, Red Bull started well, and yes, it's an evolution of what happened last season, but then we've seen Ferrari, McLaren, and so forth, Mercedes, even a little tiny bits in areas, catch up and pose a threat to Red Bull. And, it hasn't been easy for them this season, and it might, last season the main competitor was Porsche for Jaguar. This season it may not just be Porsche, right? So therefore, if they're not at their A game, then it doesn't take much in Formula E to slip from 1st down to 8th or 9th consistently and be fighting for the lower echelons of the points. And that's the worry. And you're right. They've only done 128 laps, the lowest of anybody so far, right? Going into Sao Paulo, they need to get those numbers up, but everybody else has got the same chance to get their numbers up. So that I feel like they're already playing catch up, and we've seen Envision, even though Envision might help them with 204 in total, Seb 125, but they haven't had it plain sailing either. Alarms coming up on Sebastian Buemi's steering wheel yesterday, and Robin really hasn't got it together for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure. The first day he only ran at 300, but he's run at 350 today. A 129.3 was the best that he could do. So, you know, and even Mitch Evans, I'm looking at Mitch Evans, he did a 350 lap, and that was only in the 130.7, but I don't know what the lap was like, so it might have been a poor lap. So, you know, you can't read too much into it. But I think Jaguar are slowly one of those to watch over the next couple of days. If tomorrow they're at the top, you breathe.
Yeah.
You think, okay, cool, maybe not too bad then. But if they're not there tomorrow, then you're like, okay, have Jaguar slip.
There is an indication. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, sorry, I was just ad-libbing. You go.
That's all right. I think if we're starting to see this, because obviously yesterday with the penalty, sure that they are playing a bit of catch up. You know, their shakedown was this morning effectively.
Yes.
As an equivalent. So potentially, because I've heard like Nissan could be strong, but again, we can hear any team. You know, we've heard good things come out of Mahindra. We've heard good things even about Lola and Yamaha, and they're a complete new entity effectively in terms of manufacturing a powertrain. So how seriously can we take those whisperings? So I guess the proof will be in the pudding in terms of the lap count and consistency, I guess. And yes, the reliability so far, at least for Jag, is not great. But we don't know what happened in the private manufacture testing. So could have gone great there, and only now they're having issues for whatever reason. So
the problem is, they may have gone great for them in the private manufacturer test, but they're by themselves. It's only when you get all together when you see
that's true. The eyes of the world.
How your homework's done.
Yeah.
You think your homework's good, and then you see mates homeworking, and oh my god, that's not what I did. That's not. Which is probably like my homework back in the day. But no, Sam, thank you so much for coming on, though. It's a really great point, and it's an interesting topic to talk about for the remainder of the session, I think.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
No, more than welcome. Thank you so much. There we go. Yeah, it's interesting with Jaguar, right? Alarm bells shouldn't be ringing, Jasmine, right? They shouldn't be ringing, but cause for concern may start to come alive if, again, they're not where they want to be, not hitting the top of the timesheets come Friday.
Yeah, totally agree. I think take it with a pinch of salt now. But by the end of the testing, maybe not alarm bells ringing, but eyebrows definitely raised, I think. And they're going to have a busy couple of weeks before we go to the first race. Maybe tomorrow they absolutely knock out of the park, and it really is that they are just,
and then we're
basically one test session behind everyone, and then we're both out of a job because we're
basically we're slamming the table. We're slamming the table, and it's like, oh no, testing means nothing, and everyone says this, and you're just trying to, it's like I'm crying out loud. But it's fine. Yeah. This is the whole point. The whole point of these shows and the whole point of talking about it is to try and see. It's like a scatter graph, right? And try and see if you can find a trend, right? How many more educational things can I say in this this section?
Exactly. Because when you've got a detective and they've got all the different pictures, that scene in Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
The red lines.
Oh, the red
lines. Yeah, the red strings.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, that's where we're trying to plot it all together.
That's us right now. Just he was completely crazed.
He was, but that's what it's supposed to be, because that's what we want. That's what otherwise, what are we going to talk about for 4 weeks?
We love testing.
What are we going to talk about for 4 weeks until Sao Paulo? Nothing. If we don't dig into these stories. But the only story, just before we leave in a couple of minutes' time, it was announced a bit earlier. Lola are finally a new team, which I got very confused about when they announced, because they have brought the Apt license. So effectively Lola is the team now, and Apt is just the technical partnership. So it's not Apt Lola, like Apt were the main team. It's now like Lola is the team. So Lola is the team.
Yeah.
So that's the most, I would say, important thing. Although I'm keeping my eye on them because, again, 184 laps, the third worst, or the worst of everybody who has started. And I don't know why. But also very interested to see how Zane Maloney does going into. I think that'll be a story to see, because obviously with these F2 drivers coming in, obviously we've got Taylor, and then we've got Maloney, and obviously Jack Crawford today has been announced as the reserve driver for Andretti. So I think on a final point in terms of these rookies, I think it's exciting to see what Maloney can do.
Yeah, I think across, Formula E and F1, we're just seeing so many great opportunities for rookie drivers at the moment, which is just always so nice to see fresh talent coming up and giving people a different, an opportunity. And Zayn, I personally really like, because he's representing the Caribbean, and I've got Caribbean heritage, and it's just so exciting to see someone from that background racing. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing how he does, for sure.
Awesome. Jasmine, it's been a pleasure. I
Thank
hope you've
you.
enjoyed your debut.
Thank you, I did. You'll be seeing me soon, hopefully, if you
fingers
decide to bring me
crossed.
back. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'd say let's take a vote, but I don't want to know if people don't want me back.
No, yeah, we'll keep that. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they've loved you. Give some love to Jasmine in the chat. There we go, before we go. But that's it from us for another day. I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully with Aisha, who we've met before, talking through all the events that happens tomorrow, and we'll see what interviews we have lined up and in store for you tomorrow. Mr. Jack Pickering will be, he's got a busy day tomorrow. His last day at the track, sadly, because of all the changes. And obviously Friday wasn't supposed to be a test, so it's a last day for Mr. Pickering at test. So he's got a lot of work to do and not a lot of time to do it. But good luck to him, and we know he'll smash it. Godspeed indeed. Thank you so much for watching the FE Bar. I've been Jack George Maynard. This has been Formula Rezone, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Night.